Welcome back to IGN Live at E3 2019. Just a little bit ago, we got an awesome look at Gears 5 during Microsoft's press conference. Here to tell us all about it, please welcome the Coalition's Rod Ferguson and IGN's resident Gears expert, Miranda Sanchez.
Hey, how are you doing?
How are you doing? Congratulations on such a great
Yeah.
showing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was awesome. That's a lot of stagecraft and a lot of running behind the scenes to get down into the hive pit. So.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. You were literally sprinting.
Yeah, actually the pit takes longer to open than I thought it would, so I didn't have to like run for it, but it was definitely like we're walking, you know, like we had to make sure we got there in time.
Yeah, that pit is awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, and the camera move was so fun.
Yeah, it drops like no one, according to them, they've never done anything like that at the theater where they've dropped a camera straight into the orchestra pit before. So now that they've seen it, they're like, yeah, we like that a lot. We might do that again. So.
Well, there's a first for everything. And speaking of first, we got to look at Escape.
Yes, you did. You came to Vancouver.
Yes, we got to play a lot of Escape together.
We did get a lot
We
of Escape together.
learned some good teamwork, which is such a huge part of Escape, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you have 3 characters, and they all have different abilities, and they're different classes, essentially. And so finding the coordination between the team players, but also the coordination between the team abilities and the way that you play, because you have a sort of Lonnie who's the attacker, and you have Mac who's the tank, and you have Keegan who's support. And so finding a way to use your ultimates and your strategies, because you're basically living off pistol and knife initially, and you have to kind of, everything you kill is potentially a new weapon, and you kind of have to plan your way through the hive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we saw a little bit of gameplay in the feature we had playing just before this, but here's even more.
Right.
So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the whole idea behind it is essentially you've been taken by a snatcher. They figured out a way to sort of Trojan horse their way into the heart of a hive, and you cut yourself out of a pod, you plant this venom bomb, and then you run for it. And so you have this giant poison cloud chasing you out, and a bunch of monsters blocking your way. And it basically takes the idea, like, you know, Gears has generally been, when you think about taking cover, it's kind of thought of as a defensive type game.
Yeah.
And this sort of takes it this other way. It makes it much more aggressive because you're having to fight your way through them as opposed to waiting for them to come to you. And, you know, it's a 3-player game, so it's a little bit easier to matchmake than, say, like Horde. And we support 3-player split screen, so you can play all 3 players on the same couch on the same TV, so it's a lot of fun.
Is there AI, let's say, if you can't find another 2 players to play with? Or you were saying there's matchmaking?
Yeah, there's matchmaking. So you can host a game and matchmake with others, but there isn't an AI because there's a lot of that teamwork so critical. Trying to get a bot that's smart enough to be with you and do everything at the right time,
Yeah.
it would be hard. But I mean, part of it is like what we expect people to do. The things we're introducing is 8 levels of difficulty to this, and so as you move up the difficulty, it gets harder and harder and harder. But you're proving your mastery, and the last level of difficulty is called Master. And so basically, what I see is like you got to get good, then you got to get fast. Because once you get to Master, then there's no time penalties, and so everything you put up on the leaderboard will be your time. So eventually, the faster and faster you go, the better and better you do on the leaderboard, and then at certain intervals, we'll give people rewards for where they are on the leaderboard. So you'll have this cosmetic that just shows you're the most badass at this particular hive.
So I want you to kind of elaborate on that particular hive.
Right. Well, so the hives, we're planning on putting out hives on a regular basis. You know, we have goals about how quickly we can do it, but we'll see how that plays out. But the other part of it is we're also including a map builder, so the community can build their own hives. And the things about the 8 layers of difficulty, they're not the same for each hive. Like, so we use what they call mutators, which is just like, oh, enemies are tougher, or there's less ammo, or the venom's faster. But each hive has its own set of 8, so you can actually mix and match, and then each hive can be a different experience on how you play it and how you prove your mastery of it. And so our expectation is like, you know, there's a pretty regular cadence of a new hive, and so you have that opportunity to come back, show your mastery, set your speed, put up on the leaderboards, collect your rewards.
Yeah, you have to keep getting better all the time.
That is the goal. That is the goal. But it's a combination of that proving mastery, but also that speed run idea. Like, this is our first kind of, Gears has always been like, don't go fast, because it's going to break things in terms of the way that you play, or you'll get flanked, or you'll end up in the wrong thing. And this is the exact opposite. This is all about a speed run come to life.
I do like that it really tests your mastery of the combat as well. So you actually gave me the best tip for this, was just put all of the modifiers on at first. Just make it as hard as you can.
Right.
And then take it back if you need to, or add other things to make it a little bit easier on your team.
That is really good.
Because then you get a good feeling of like, where do I stand in this? Like, is this too hard for me? And like, what am I having problems with? And then that can kind of help train you how to get better faster.
For sure, it's definitely more fun. Like you want it where it's a challenge, and actually, like, the higher the challenge, the better the rewards.
Yeah.
And so you want to take it up as far as you can, and then if you find out, okay, I can't make it yet, then you can bring it back down. Because one of the things you're doing is you're progressing as you go. So if you remember Horde from Gears 4, you have these skill cards. And so the same thing is true for Escape. So then as you play and succeed, then you'll start earning those skill cards so you can just make yourself stronger and stronger. So part of it will be how well you play, but the other part will be how high your level is and how many cards you have and how strong your abilities are.
I want to go back to the modifiers. What kind of modifiers can we expect to be able to mess with?
So there's a lot like more enemies, stronger enemies, more powerful enemies, faster venom, and ammo starvation. Like there's a bunch of different ones that we can put together, and we can continue to make new ones as we go. It's one of those things that's like it's more on the back end, so we can create more and more mutators as we keep the service going after we launch. But a big thing for us was just having this. Now we have a system where we can build these hives in a tile-based system. So we said, okay, if we're building it with tiles, why not let the players do that? So for the first time in a long time, you're able to actually be a player and contribute to the Gears of War universe by creating your own hives, proving that you can beat your own hive, and then you can put it out there to challenge your friends.
What's the discoverability of finding hives that other players have built?
Yeah, it'll be out there right on the UI. Like so, right in the front end, there'll be this idea of we'll have featured hives, and then we'll have community hives, and we're looking at like how we sort of have the right ones bubble to the top in terms of how we look at them, and we'll actually start. Once we are able to look at them, we can start featuring community hives too. So there'll be one thing we're really pushing for. We want people that idea like user-generated content has not really been a big thing for Gears of War. Like back in Gears 1 PC, we kind of basically shipped the Unreal Editor, which is super hard to get into if you don't do that stuff normally. So this is more of a sort of like the way that you think about clicking tracks together. The fact that it's almost a 2D editor, and you got to build a hive.
Yep.
And
I made it super hard.
And that's part of the fun, and that's one of the things we want to do is you have to play it and prove that you can beat it before you can put it out there, because we don't want people just building impossible hives.
Yeah, I actually really like that too. So if you build an impossible hive and you beat it, then you have like the best bragging rights. It's like, hey, well, if I can beat it, then you can find a way.
Right.
You're telling me you can't beat it?
Yeah.
I just did.
Exactly.
So how do you make a difficult hive? Like what makes it so difficult?
Well, so it depends on what you want from your challenge. If it's a very long one with like fast venom that's kind of pushing you forward, or if it's you're putting down like these very tough enemies, say like 13 snipers in one room, which is what I did with fast venom. Also other like with low ammo and stuff. So like there's a lot of ways you can construct that to be very, very difficult. But
it's kind of what we do in the game too. Like the game, when you think about creating an encounter, even the campaign, like when you create an encounter, you're thinking about enemy sort of variation, and what if I have, the Scion with now in our cases we have like the Sire and the Warden, and you have snipers and hunters with torque bows. Like how you work that and play that out in terms of like because we talk about having flushers and pinners. You have things that charge you to get you out of cover, and we have things like a sniper that'll try to keep you in cover. And as you mix and match those, you can create a really unique challenge. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be in cover because there's snipers, but all these juvies are jumping on me, so I got to get out of cover, and how do I balance that? So there's a lot of different ways from the way you use your mutators to also your enemy sort of layout, and how much loot do you put in the world, because part of it is exploration.
Yeah.
And so you can kick open a door and find a boom shot, and that might help you, but if you're making it really hard, then that boom shot's not there.
And so a thing I do want to talk about, because it's not just the most easy thing to see if you're not really paying attention to the gameplay, there's some significant weapon changes here and how gunplay works.
Yeah, totally. That's one of the things we sort of reimagined gunplay for Gears of War. So we used to think about it must be a big reticle that kind of sprayed within it, and now we're actually much more precise, and we actually put that on the recoil of the weapon. And it's a predictable recoil, so you can actually get both the guns now have a personality because each have their own recoil pattern, and now and it's learnable, so it creates another kind of skill gap where you can go, oh, when I shoot the Enforcer, it kind of pulls this way, so I can counter it and make it more accurate, and I can learn each weapon in its unique way of playing. And it just makes it a much more contemporary shooter, and we actually really leaned into the idea that headshots are really important. And it was something we started on really early with Escape, was that, body shots will do less damage, and headshots will do more damage, and because we really wanted to get that play going, and we realized like this is actually working really, really well, that we sort of took that through the rest of the game. It's also the notion of numbers too. Like I think one of the things we really wanted to get into is with health bars and numbers that you're seeing with Escape in particular, is because you're getting cards and skills, you're making changes. Like, oh, my weapon is now 12% more powerful, and we wanted you to be able to see that number change from 100 to 112. So like, oh, I see the benefit of what I'm doing. So it creates more visibility in how your character is changing.
I would have never really thought about that, but that does feel like so satisfying to be able to actually apply something and directly see the result.
Yeah, and you see it in the reticle. So one of the big things is when you hit, you'll see the reticle go white and with a little X coming out of it. When you hit a weak spot, or like say a headshot, it'll go red. If you hit a weak spot or a headshot with active reload, it'll go gold. And then when the creature dies, then it'll actually blow out with a big white X to tell you that you actually got a kill. So kind of just watching the reticle now will tell you everything you need to know.
So are there boss fights, or is it only waves of enemies?
So this is a progression. It's kind of like a dungeon run in a way, and so it's really up to whoever builds the hive. Like in this case, the flock that you're seeing there is kind of the boss of this hive.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely feels like a boss.
Definitely looks very difficult.
It's very challenging.
Yeah, and the more mutators, like it wasn't so bad when it had more health, but when it started doing more damage, that's when it became pretty devastating to the group. And the fact that it's a flock of leeches makes it interesting. But yeah, so it really comes down to how we do the layouts. We didn't want to be like predictably every room at the end always has to have this, but so you might end up with like a bunch of mini bosses, or you might have one big boss, or you might not have it at all, depending on the challenge the player's creating or the designer's creating.
And then at the bottom, I see there's kind of, I'm assuming that's her ultimate.
Correct.
Can you go over what each of the ultimates are for the characters?
Sure. So each character has its own ultimate. So Lonnie, you saw there, has an electroblade knife, and you have, which is, she's the one that's on the front line. She's the one that's like really being aggressive. Then you have Keegan, who's the support. He does an ammo crate and basically resupplies the team. And you're ammo starved pretty much throughout this, so it's really important to use that. And then Mac is kind of the tank. He's got a barrier shield that he can use to defend if you have to get somebody back up, or you have to go and do, or you're facing off against a bunch of snipers and those sorts of things. So those three characters and how you work that sort of the scout, frontliner, the support, and the tank, and use their skills back and forth, because at different times each one will be the most important.
Now, you gave us a release date. You showed us Escape. You also announced the Terminator character pack.
Right.
Now that comes with the pre-order?
Yeah, it's two ways to get that. So basically, either you pre-order the game, or if you play the first week, so from September 6th to September 16th. And that's for people who are in Game Pass who are not going to pre-order, because they're going to get it to show up, light up on their dashboard on day one. And so if they play, they're able to get the T-800, as you see here, as a character, as well as Sarah Connor, as you've seen in the Terminator Dark Fate movie, as you see here. Yeah, and it's great. And we also have a bunch of customization stuff coming from the Dark Fate movie itself. And we've been working with Sundance and Paramount on these characters, and it's really exciting. Just, I mean, when you're in video games, you kind of like, you have to love the Terminator. It's it's just sort of the thing you always go back to.
The rite of passage.
And yeah, exactly. And so when we thought about Kate's journey and how she's gone from an outsider to this sort of warrior now inside of the COG, it really kind of resonated really well with the idea of what happened with Sarah, and going from, okay, I'm just a civilian, and now I'm bringing the fight to the future in a way. And so we really felt there was a good match between Sarah and Kate, and so we really wanted to tie in and have that partnership and bring those characters.
Now, we don't have too much time, but you guys do have a partnership with E-League, correct?
We do.
And you're showing stuff at the end of this week?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on. I mean, the big thing for us is really going to be in July when we do our tournament. But the episodes are starting to air. They're going to be, I think we're doing a preview of one of the episodes, I think, coming up soon. And then it's basically, have Gears of War be on national television and esports. And what I love about it is Rose and her team, the way that they're doing the content is really about not just focusing on the gameplay, but it's actually focused on the players and the fans, and getting to see how players' journeys go from, maybe tough times to now they're having great success as a player, and what Gears of War means to them beyond, this entertainment, game. It's actually something that they're making a living at, or it gave them some structure, or it gave them a community, and it gave them a friend group. And seeing these people take these journeys is like, I'd liken it to the Olympics. Like, there's not a lot of triathletes. Maybe I know, right? But when you watch the Olympics and you see their backstory, now I care and I want them to win.
Exactly. It becomes something else.
Totally. And this is what the E-League is going to bring. They follow 6 different players, and you get to see their stories, and you get to see the rivalries, and then you get to see them play Gears 5. It's going to be exciting.
That's such a great way to end it, too. It's just like, we know you, we care about you now, and we really want to see you play, and then you get to round out with like Gears 5 gameplay. Right? That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Rod. Gears 5 hits Xbox One and Windows PC September 10th, and I personally cannot wait to play it. I'm sure we'll have plenty of coverage on IGN.